the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. It was in Sunday school class one day, and the teacher was going to ask a question to all the children. And so she said, this is the question, very simple question, who made you? And this little girl was raising her hand, really wants to speak, and she said, okay, Sue or Mary, whatever the child's name was. And the little girl said, well, God made me real little, but I just grew up all by myself. How many of you have been to one of your high school class reunions at least 20 years or so after, 20 years after you graduated? Huh? Fun?
Yeah.
Kind of a kick, huh? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really kind of a hilarious thing. What you want to see is hair, no hair, gut, no gut, married, children. I mean, what have all these people been doing? Are they anything like your image of them from when you were 18 years old from the last time you saw them? You want to, well, I recognize who they are, There's a lot of drink going on at those kind of reunions, and you find out right away who the lushes are. I mean, who went to school for further education? Who went into the military? Who got 12 facelifts? All that stuff. I mean, what happened to all these people after all these years? And it's intriguing to have all those questions and ask all those questions about all these people you haven't seen for so long. Now, you have to remember that during that time, they have the same questions about you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Linda and I are now preparing or thinking about going to our 55th class reunion, which is coming up in June. And we went to small schools. I went to a boys' military school that had 55 in my graduating class, and Linda's had 30 girls in her graduating class, so this is not a really big place. 85 students or so in our whole class. And so we're looking forward to doing that. But as we're doing this, I'm thinking about my first class reunion that I went to, which was at 20 years. My first kind of big one. At 20 years. And it was a kick. I was astonished at how many people I knew. I mean, instantaneously, no question. They looked exactly as they had when we graduated. But by the same token, there was another half or more of the class that I had no idea who they were. I mean, not the foggiest idea. I mean, you just couldn't figure it out. Some of them I couldn't figure out even what sex they were. It was so changed with some of these people. They were transformed. And I was like, holy man. One of the people that was most changed from what I had expected was one of my roommates. This was a very smart guy. I mean, a really, really smart guy. But also nuts. Kind of nuts. His hobby was making explosive devices in our room. IEDs, we'd make these things in the room, set them off in different parts of the campus. While my primary job at the time was providing beer to the majority of the campus, I was the kind of purveyor of alcoholic spirits on the campus in those days. But that's kind of what we did. But I never thought he would amount to much because I thought he'd either end up in jail or dead. Just blowing something up, because that's kind of what he did. And I knew after graduation he'd kind of gone off the end. He had joined a rock band, was a drummer, and he had got into the drug scene in the 60s and kind of, so none of us was expecting much at our 20th reunion because we didn't even know he was still alive. But he showed up. And he showed up a whole different person than we had expected. He was married, which was extremely surprising that he was married. He had gone back to school, gotten his PhD in physics, and was now teaching and doing research at the University of Nebraska. Go figure. I mean, it was astonishing. It was just amazing that this transformation, he had gone down this path, and somehow the path had changed and he had gone down this path, which is quite a successful path. And he's still quite successful in it to this day. within that reunion scene at 20 years, if my class had voted as to who the greatest transformation had happened in, the lot would have fell on me. Let me share with you some of the conversations. Hey Steve, what are you doing these days? I'm a priest. You're a what? I'm a priest. Are you kidding me? You were the guy that brewed all the... you would sneak out of school and go visit your girlfriend at nighttime. I mean, you of all people, what in the world would have caused you to do that? God? Really? Yeah. God? Why? Well, I don't know. I was going this way, and God just came into my life, and I started going this way. You know, God can do that sort of thing. And suddenly you see people going, it didn't want any of that God stuff rubbing off on there. And for the rest of the reunion, everyone gave me wide berth, a lot of festivities, you know. It was both sad, you know, and kind of painful. That for some reason people would think that they were either so frightened of the power of God or so guilty about their own lives that they would, except for maybe my closest friends, but the rest of them, boy, they didn't want to be close to me at all. You see, God can actually do things like this. God can take you from this path and help move you to another path. In the letter we have today from Paul, Paul's first letter to Timothy, it's kind of a joyful lament that Paul gives about his own life. And he speaks about that God somehow came in and intervened in his life in such a powerful way that there's not much that he could do about it. He was going down a certain path, a path of destruction, a path of killing the disciples of Christ, a path of blasphemy, a path of hatred, a path of ignorance. And somehow God just grabbed him and changed it. And he says in there that the grace of God was so great and so pervasive that he could not resist, that God's love was so overwhelming. God's grace, the love of Jesus Christ was so overwhelming, and God's reach is can reach so far that there's no one outside of God's grace, and there's no one whom God cannot reach. Now, is that good news or what? Go like this. Okay. It is good news. It's good news for Paul. Paul says that the grace of God overflowed me and caused me now to go out and take that grace myself and pass that grace on to others. You know, that's really what God's all about. Sharing His grace in such a way that those of us with whom He shares might what? Go and share it with others. Do you know who the legs of this operation are, people? Come on, do you? Who? Come on. It's us. You may not want that job, but doggone it, that's our job. And God's grace is so powerful and so exciting and so wonderful that no matter where we are, no matter where we've been, no matter what we've done, no matter what sin we've been in or how far we've strayed, doesn't matter at all. God's grace is still so wonderful and so pervasive that God will come and transform our lives so that we might be used, like Paul, as vessels of grace to go into the world. Why? Because the world needs it. The world needs God's grace. And we are the ones who are here. Have you ever watched a potter? I mean, like a real potter? I've only watched one. I mean, one up close and kind of personal, you know, and it was a woman, and I was so transfixed by what she did that I was there for like 2 hours. I just couldn't stop watching this extraordinary thing happening in front of me. A gray lump of mud. I mean, just this nothing. And she took it and she slapped it on the wheel and put some water on it. and it began to turn, your foot working, you know, not the power kind, the old-fashioned treadle kind. And I watched these hands caress a piece of mud. And suddenly, out of useless formlessness, something began to emerge that had form and function to it. Now, the mud had possibilities. I couldn't see, none of us could see. Only the potter's eye could see the possibility in the mud. But somehow, from heart to eye to brain to hand, and this thing was created right in front of me. It was extraordinary to see, to really watch this. And obviously it's got some connotations, I think. And as it grew and as this thing began to emerge and watching it, suddenly there was a flaw. Suddenly there was kind of ooze between these fingers or something, and it moved out, it got a little lopsided. And just in an instant, blam! She slammed her hand on top of it, boom, lump again. A little water, and she began again. And took what had been didn't have to be. See? But now something new could become out of what she had. That's the same with us. What has been doesn't have to be. What can begin. You see, some of us are pretty well formed already, or at least we think we are. But that's only for the moment, I'm here to tell you. And some of us aren't formed at all because we're resistant to being formed, and we really don't want God to do something with our lives, and we're kind of pushing back because we think that's too much responsibility. It's a place too far. Some of us are old and beat up and chipped and cracked, and we're in need of the potter's hammer to slam us down and some waters of grace to pour back on top of it, to become mud again, so that we might be formed. And some of us only need a little patching here and there, a little patch, so that we might be all together and be able to contain that grace that God has for us. But one thing for sure that I'm confident in, that God is not done with any of us yet. Not as individuals or not as a people. God has so much more. Think of what's happening here. We're going to get a new rector. Boy, is that possibilities. We're going to get a new building. Boy, are there possibilities. Think of what God might do and take this family, this piece of mud here, and what God might build with that piece of mud. What grace might flow through that piece of mud. What this vessel that is called All Saints could do to the world, because the world is in such need of the grace that we have. There is so much ahead of us. So many ways that God plans to use each of us, you and you and you and you and me, that we haven't even imagined yet. Willing clay, loving potter, that's all we need. Amen.
Amen.